It's not a Mills and Boon kind of soppy kind of. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I trust you are all doing well, doing good, doing great. I am, no complaints. This is going to be the first video of my top 3 recommendations of books and authors that I really love. So if you're a book reader and you love to read, this is the video for you. Like, I'm not even lying. It took me the longest time to do this series of top 3 recommendations because I thought, how am I going to do it? How am I going to go about it? So what I'm going to be doing in this series is basically looking at one particular author that I like and choosing 3 of his or her best novels that I recommend that you should read. Maybe a little bit later on we'll mix it in because there are authors that I have only read like literally one of their books and I think they're great. So maybe a little bit later on we might mix it in and have 3 or 4 different authors in one video. But for now, for the next coming 2, 3, 4 videos, we're going to be focusing on one author. And as you can see in the title below, today we're going to be looking at the top 3, in my opinion, from Paulo Coelho. So if you would like to see this video, please do me the favor and keep watching. So today we're going to be looking at Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho de Souza was born in 1947 in Brazil. He speaks Portuguese, of course, and his genre of books, he's a novelist, a lyricist, and also very well known and internationally acclaimed for his great books. He writes so well, it's a lot. It's a lot. Essentially, Paulo Coelho is one of my favorite authors. I do not miss a book of his. I've not read all of them, but he is the acclaimed author behind The Witch of Portobello, The Zahir, The Alchemist, which I'm going to be talking about today. He's well known for The Alchemist. I'm going to be giving you my top 3 recommendations from Paulo Coelho. If you would like to see this video, let's start with the first book that I love from Paulo Coelho. Keep watching. So the first book that I absolutely love from Paulo Coelho is The Alchemist. Now, The Alchemist is internationally acclaimed. It's won so many awards. Honestly, because of the fact that it's a really great book. Now, I've written some notes because The Alchemist is a book that I read a long time ago. All 3 of these books I actually read years and years ago. So I don't quite remember the finer details, but I know what the themes running through the books are and, you know, just essentially the things that you would need to know about the book. So I don't have a copy of The Alchemist here because I borrow my friends' books and sometimes they don't bring them back. And I realized only today that I don't have a copy of The Alchemist, and it's one of my favorite books. So what I will do is maybe put something here so that you can see what the book looks like. So The Alchemist is set in Egypt. And it follows the protagonist, a young man by the name of Santiago. And Santiago travels the desert, and along his travels, he meets up with a lot of different people. He meets up with an Englishman who is fascinated with the secrecy of alchemy, which is basically turning metal, any kind of metal, into gold. He meets an Englishman, he meets a woman by the name of Fatima, an Arabic girl, he meets crystal merchant, he meets an old woman. The themes that run through this book are topics of self-actualization, learning who you are, not being afraid to live in the moment, to do what you want to do, to not let fear take over. It is a really good book that speaks to you through the form of reading a novel. It's really good because at the end of the day, it touches on subjects that we go through in this quest and in this journey of life. And with each and every character that he meets, that Santiago meets through the book, they teach him a little bit of something that he learns from. So essentially, when he meets Fatima, the Arabic girl, he falls in love with her and he wants to travel with her and continue on his journey with her, but unfortunately he can't. And that teaches him about true love and true unconditional love, which is selfless. And it's just a really good book. So it touches on the topics of self-love, of unconditional love, unconditional love, self-actualization, self-realization, traveling the journey of your life and what you learn from it, living in the moment. It is a beautiful book that I think will speak to any person, irrespective of what age you are, what phase of your life you're in. So I definitely do advise that you try this book, The Alchemist. You are gonna love it. Love it. In book number 2, I actually have here with me. This is the manuscript, not the manuscript. This is Manuscript, found in Accra. One of the books that speaks to me quite a lot. So this book tackles a lot of themes and subjects, but before I get into that, it essentially is set in somewhere around 1945, also set in Egypt, where these 2 young brothers discover an urn that is full of papyruses, like manuscripts. And it then switches to the narrator telling us a story of how he met the son of an Englishman archaeologist who also found a manuscript as well. And in the book, he actually narrates this manuscript in the form of a conversation, like a Q&A session. So what happens is the manuscript just is set in somewhere around 1099 or something like that. And it is set in Jerusalem, like a night before Jerusalem is invaded. So you have men and women that are sitting in the town square and they're talking to this mysterious Greek man, which they call the Copt. They love him because he speaks a whole lot of words of wisdom. They come to him when they've got questions and fears and, they need advice on things. And he's sitting there and he's advising them on different topics. This leads on to what the book explores. So the book explores, the women ask him questions on beauty, on love, on sex, on a multitude of things. And then the men ask, it also tackles topics of loyalty and topics of solitude. One of the reasons why I love this book is it tackles solitude so well. It is so good. It's not a novel where you can say like it's a perfect storyline. It's more on the conversationalist end of things where it's an underliner. There are novels where you just sort of underline the key quotes, statements that stick out to you about life, about beauty, about love, about solitude, loyalty in the sense of this book, and you keep going back to it. Paulo Coelho is extremely good with words. He makes writing a book seem like so easy, and the manuscript does a very good, illustrates that really well. They are all available at Exclusive Books, all of them. Even if they're not in the shop the time you go and buy them, you are gonna find them in the shop when you order them, and you will receive them in a day or 2. So this is a really good book. This is my number 2 from Paulo Coelho. Absolutely love. And then the third book, I would like for anyone who's younger than 16 not to watch the remainder of this video, to just sort of click out. This book has a very big sentimental value for me. Not only is it an amazing book, but it's a book that me and my mother read within the space of a couple of days. I read it first and then she read it a few days later, and we spoke and we communicated about it, and we had such great conversations on it, and it reminds me of my mother. If you're not somebody who is familiar with me, my mom passed away. Me and Naledi, our mom, passed away a couple of years ago. So there are moments and there are books that mean so much to me that I love them. So currently this book is with my best friend Dineo, so I can't show you the book, but I will put a picture somewhere here so you can see what it looks like. This book is called 11 Minutes. This book tackles some serious topics, and I think if you are somebody who is on the path, especially for women, if you are on the path of realizing yourself, coming into your being, coming into your sexuality, this would be a really good book for you to read. Not only is it a great novel, it's very interesting. He plays with words very nicely in this book, but at the same time, Paulo Coelho is so good at evoking your imagination. He literally wakes it up. There are some sexual scenes in this book. It's not a Mills and Boon kind of soppy and it's not pornographic in any way, but it is very tastefully done, where it looks at topics like self-love, prostitution. It looks at the different types of prostitution. I'll explain as I go along. So essentially, this is a book about a girl called Maria, and she is born in Brazil, and she suffers her first heartbreak. And after her first heartbreak, it changes her views on love altogether, and she decides, you know what, I am gonna move from this place because this is not for me. And she moves and she goes over to Switzerland. When she gets to Switzerland, she's like, okay, she wants to further her modeling career, so she tries her hand at modeling. Proves to be very, very hard, and then what she ends up doing is working at a nightclub so that she can pay her bills and things like that. Eventually, one day she has a fight with the manager of the nightclub and she decides to quit her job. Now she's struggling for work. She meets this one Arabic man one day who offers to pay her 1,000 francs for sleeping with her. And she goes ahead and she does it. In this time, she realizes, well, this is an easy way to make money and things like that. But at the same time, it opens up her world in terms of her sexual fantasies and her sexual, her sexuality. So what happens is she ends up becoming the most famous, well-known prostitute, much to the envy of her colleagues. But what she does is she separates that from love. But she is loved by all her clients because she's the prostitute that calms her clients down and speaks to her clients about their problems and things like that. Goes very well until the day she meets a guy called Ralph. And Ralph is a Swiss painter. And she meets him and she falls head over heels in love with him. He's the one who discovers Maria's inner self. He sees her, beyond the physical. He sees her beyond what she sees from herself. So what happens is this becomes a very hard, it causes a lot of conflict within herself because it's a split between her sexual fantasies, her sexuality, her sexual realization, all that jazz, and love. It opens her up to sacred sex. And that's why I say it's very difficult for me to talk about this book, but it's a really good book, especially for women. It's a really good book. It tackles those topics of prostitution, self-love, self-actualization, and how prostitution can be divided into two, like sacred prostitution and prostitution for money. And it's amazing. It opens up your eyes to quite a lot of things, but also just makes you think a lot about your own sexuality as well. So it's a really good book. Those are my 3 recommendations from Paulo Coelho. He's got other great books that I've read. The Zahir, Aleph, Adultery. He's got so many good books that I've read that are great, but these 3 stand out the most for me. That's all I'm going to say. The video is going to be quite long, so I'm going to cut it down. And that's my top 3 recommendations from Paulo Coelho. Have you read anything else by Paulo Coelho that maybe I haven't read that you might suggest that I read? Let me know. If you've read anything else by any author, if you're a reader and there's a book that you want me to dive into, let me know what it is and I'll definitely get into looking at that for you. So until I see you next time at the next top 3 recommendations, live in light and love, and I'll see you soon. Bye.